Awesome. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Sammy, for
Sure.
joining me today.
Our
Uh,
pleasure.
Really excited to kick off the Chief Future Officer series with you. I'll give you a bit of context again. The
Sure.
reason why we decided to start off this series is to have a platform where we can bring together top finance leaders in the Middle East to discuss and share insights on the future of finance in the region. And that's exactly what we're going to do here today. I just want to have a regular chat with you, get to know you, and get your
Sure.
perspective on different topics in finance.
Yeah,
Sounds good?
for sure. For sure.
Awesome. So, how about we kick off with an introduction of you, what your professional journey has been like, and what led you to becoming a co founder at Vault?
Yeah, so since I graduated, I started off as a graduate with Standard Chartered Bank in Hong Kong, and it was, a multi department role. So I got exposure to compliance, advisory, operations, etc. And then I came back to the UAE because I grew up here. I was with Deloitte for a period of time in M&A, but more on the tax structuring side. Didn't enjoy it at all. It was just a lot of report writing and
Yeah.
very similar mandates, so it was very repetitive. And then I joined HSBC at a time where they created a new proposition called Jade, which is now called Onshore Private Bank. It was a proposition for $1 to $10 million segment of clients. And through there, I managed to build my book of clients, my portfolio, and do very well at it. But quickly, I realized with my co-founder, who was also ex-HSBC, that there's a big misalignment between what the bank tries to sell the clients and what's in the best interest of the client. So we witnessed like mis-selling, product pushing, and yeah, we decided we should do something about it. So that's the problem we identified in the market. And then as we were building Vault, we had no tech background, no tech experience, but
Yeah.
we recognized that you need to go digital first in today's environment, especially if you want to create a scalable proposition. And we did very well in building the product, hiring a CTO to join us from the beginning, building a tech team in house. And yeah, we've really done well to create a proposition or a platform for the affluent segment that's underserved. You look at the private banks today, like Julius Baer, UBS, JP Morgan, they don't care about clients that have less than 10 to 20 million because of
Yeah.
their cost to serve. And through the tech, we've helped clients give the right access to solutions, investment products. Our focus is all about diversification, risk management, and yeah, it's a journey. We're a year into operations, and we've managed to grow around 20% month on month in AUMs, and we're continuing that path. Yeah.
No, it's pretty cool. I was actually going through my LinkedIn yesterday and I saw your post from Love in Dubai, Augustus Media.
Oh yeah.
They had covered that. And
Yeah.
and then I just went on to like read about both you and Bilal, right? And it's pretty interesting how, two colleagues just are working somewhere and then they realize, okay, we need to do something about this problem. Both of us can see it.
Yeah.
So kudos to you both, man. It's
Thank
super
you.
cool what you guys are doing. Uh, all right. So, coming to the next question, what excites you the most about your role as a co founder in the fintech space?
Yeah, I think the most exciting part is, for what, especially in wealth management, right? It can apply to almost everyone, right? Everyone's working hard to save money,
Yeah.
and once you've saved, that money, it's what do you do with it? And so it can apply to such a widespread amount of people. So the exciting part is really helping and servicing that, but more importantly, I really believe that banks today, because of how they operate, do create a misalignment with the client, and more than anything, we look to solve for that, right? So it's yeah, doing what's right for the client, and creating an environment or an ecosystem that everyone can benefit from. So investors will benefit from the business growing. Stakeholders within the business benefit from being part of something new and disruptive, and clients benefit from getting the right advice and the right products and the right outcomes in the long term. So that's really the most exciting part. And then as technology is evolving with AI and so on, there's so much that can be done within wealth management to optimize and create a proposition, right? That's better than any bank can offer at the moment. So think that's what's exciting me right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Also, like, what about your roles? Like, what do you look after at Vault, and what does Bilal look after? How have you guys
Yeah.
segregated those duties?
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's the most organized segregation. It's definitely wherever we see we whoever has the strongest skill set will, will take cover. But for example, my focus is more on the product, the platform, what investment products we should be bringing on the marketing and sales, like how do we optimize for, that lead generation to conversion. So it's very much multi hat. Um, and Bilal the same, but Bilal is more on the legal compliance, as well as clients understanding what the investment solutions should be that we bring onto the platform. But I really like to get involved in products. Like for me, how the platform looks, feels, the user journeys, the client's experience and feedback is where I really like to focus on. Again, I'm restricted to the tech knowledge because of my background. So obviously,
Yeah.
our CPTO is the one that looks after the end to end on the digital side. But that's really where I've enjoyed so far.
And how
The
do
most.
you balance between these different areas that you're managing? How do you prioritize or deprioritize based on so many different functions that you're looking after?
Yeah, it comes at different stages. So, like in the beginning, when you're building and getting regulated, it's all about legal compliance and tech, right? Like it's how do you get set up in a way so that you're ready to go to market. Once you've done that, then the focus shifts and the prioritization shifts towards marketing, sales. Like now, how do we acquire clients,
Yeah.
grow, right? And then as you start to do that, and then that kind of goes into automation where it's working well, then the focus is more about strategic. It's okay, well, what's the plan for the next 3 6 months, 1 year time, right? What should we be bringing into the platform that's going to help us with acquisition of clients, and so on. So it always changes. I think now, because we have a team of 13 and everyone has their specific roles, it's helped us give autonomy towards everyone and doing what they do best, and for us to focus more on the strategic side. Of course, fund because we're a VC, backed business. Fundraising takes
Yeah.
up a lot of our time. Unfortunately, I wouldn't say that's. I
Unfortunately.
would say that's probably the least favorite of my role, but it's an important part of the role, right? Because getting the right investors on board from the beginning is going to help us in growing to where we need to be.
It must have been a really interesting experience. Like I always think about startup founders with different backgrounds, yours being in wealth management. And yes, you have started something in wealth management, but how did it feel to, be doing marketing, to be doing sales, things you didn't think you'd be doing in your professional career?
Yeah. Yeah, I say to anyone now, like, instead of going and doing an MBA, set up a company because you do everything, right? So, like, yeah, it was, especially in the beginning, especially on the product tech side, I didn't know what a front end developer, back end. So, a lot of learning there. But you learn as you go, right? And when you're in the situation, I think it helps. And then on the marketing and sales, it was getting the right advice sometimes. The good thing about the UAE, Dubai, it's a small community. Well, it's a relatively small community, so you can always reach out to people who are experts in certain fields, get their advice, input. So that always helps as a sounding board. But yeah, you just figure it out as you go, and you have to be very quick to fail. If you fail, to pivot, right? So it's like learn, fail is okay, but then pivot and continue, because as a startup you only have a finite amount of time, right, that you can make mistakes, and then that's part of the learning process. So yeah, and I would suggest to anyone is it's really seek out help when you can, because there's nothing wrong with that, right? There are people that are brilliant at what they do and that can act as sounding boards, and give you that direction you need, right? So I'm still learning,
Yeah,
but it's going in the right
it's a
direction. So
process.
it's a
Yeah.
process, exactly, exactly.
Awesome. All right. Also, with AI, tech, and digital transformation, they've been like major focus areas for many organizations this year. What role do you see these new advancements playing in the future of finance?
Yeah, I mean, AI is obviously such a huge disruptor, and especially in generative AI. And what we're doing specifically, for example, is we're creating a module where we're integrated with OpenAI, with GPT-4 at the moment, and that helps us in two ways. One, it's we have so much data around our clients, their assets, income, expenses, liabilities, everything, right? So it's now, how do you integrate that so that this AI can now provide recommendations, advice that the advisor is still there to rely on, right? So it almost acts like a co-pilot. But if you
Yeah.
think about it in 5 years' time, then there's almost no need to have a human advisor, right? Because an AI can know as much as the best wealth advisors in the world, right? You can teach it the CFA, you can teach it every course there is around wealth management, and so that's definitely direction. Now, you know,
It
I
would have
just think
learned so much by
it,
then.
it would have learned
Yeah.
so much by then. It would understand the clients to the T. So that's really where, at least in the wealth space, I definitely see that taking over the advisory side of the business. I still think the human part is going to be important, but
Yeah,
who
for
knows in 5 to 10 years where you wouldn't even know if this AI is real or not, right? It's that's the direction it's going in, and so
yeah.
you can imagine banks today, one of their highest cost to serve problems is the human capital, right? So if they find a way where they can now reduce that by
With that,
50,
yeah.
60%, it's going to really change the environment and wealth. And I'm sure apply, in finance generally, right? You wouldn't need a team of 15 finance officers, or you can really disrupt that on the
Yeah.
human capital side.
No, for sure. Would you say that, this thing that you're doing right now with Chat GPT, integrating it within Vault,
Yeah.
is it an ongoing process? Where would you say you guys are, in implementing it? And would you say that this is your top innovation when it comes to Vault and implementing AI?
Yeah, so we've been working on this for the past like 6 months, right? But it's not on our priority of our roadmap. So we're doing it in
Okay.
parallel to our immediate roadmap and product. But it's in beta right now, so we're testing it internally, like between us and our wealth advisors. We haven't shared this with clients yet on our platform,
Okay.
but we certainly look to release this probably in Q1 next year, where
Okay.
now a client can interact on our platform and ask this AI, should I, if they have a property in the UK, right? And for what, they're looking to now ask, should I sell this? And if I do, what should I invest in once I sell it, right? And so we can start giving that kind of advice. But yeah, for the time being, we want to just keep working on it, and we are. We're working on every month, optimizing it so that it becomes ready to share with the client. Would I say it's the most innovative? I mean, certainly, it is. I wouldn't say it gives the most value add to the client, though. I still think things we're building at the moment when it comes to financial planning, for example, where now a client can record all their assets with us, all their liabilities, income, expenses, holistically, right? Not just what they have invested with Vault as well. And I think that adds a lot more value to the end client because it makes sense to them, right? But certainly AI is something that's innovating the way it will be done in the next 3 to 5 years when it
So
comes
you
to
would say
financial
that
planning.
it's the overall offering of the product where it's not just limited to what they've invested with Vault, but everything that a client owns, they could have a full big picture view with that.
And especially with open banking, right? Because open banking now allows for fintechs or other platforms to get access to this kind of
Yeah.
data, and it becomes real time, right? And that's the difficulty, especially in UAE. If you think about anyone who's affluent or high net worth in the UAE today, they're a global citizen, right? They have assets in
All over.
their
Yeah.
home country, in Switzerland, Singapore, and so it just becomes a bit of a mess, right? Like the average client will have probably more than 3, 4 bank accounts, right,
Yeah.
across the world. So yeah, so I think our value proposition is consolidation and giving holistic advice that no one does at the moment.
Yeah. No, that's very true and very, I mean, definitely a great offering to have. So out of all the technologies that you've, integrated in Wall's operation, which one do you believe has been the most successful for the company itself? Like, I understand this has been really, good for your clients, but what about the tech stacks that you might have implemented within the company? Anything that, you found very helpful?
Yeah, I would say a couple. So when it comes to compliance, so as a regulated company, compliance is extremely burdensome, right? It requires a lot
Yeah.
of time, resource, effort. So internally, we've now through our engineering team and our compliance officer automated everything when it comes to compliance, to the point where now when we onboard you, we can give you a risk rating within seconds, and that becomes compliant with the regulator, which would have taken maybe hours because you need to manually have to go and check. You have a matrix, so we've automated all of that through API as well. We have different integrations, and I think that's helped now because when we're onboarding, let's say 50 clients in a month, for example, yeah, we're not spending 50 hours
Hours
to make
doing that.
sure that
Yeah.
it's now becomes maybe less than an hour to do all of that. So that's helped internally. I think the second is on the sales funnel. So through Zapier and all these integrations, when a client on board or
Automation.
signs up, it goes to our Slack channel. Automatically we then see how they heard about us, what their details are. It's integrated with our mix panel, so then we see their
Yeah.
user behavior. So through all these integrations, when it comes to these sales funnel, it's real time, it's quick, and I think that's helped a lot because you can just effectively monitor and see where the friction is as well, and then try to optimize for that. And that's something new to me, right? Like I didn't know that one could integrate such a flow
Tools.
that we
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
right? So that's definitely helped from a market, from a sales perspective. Yeah,
We use Zapier as well, and I love the automations. There's something new that we discovered. It's called make.com. It's much cheaper than Zapier.
really.
Maybe you guys could try that out as
Sure.
well.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, we're always looking to save because our monthly subscription costs,
I swear.
increasing every day. So yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
That was our concern as well, with because we also have
Yeah,
so many different flows going on, and we just were looking to cut costs. So make
yeah,
really came in handy. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So what are okay, just give me 1 second. I my Google is your screen is lagging a little bit. I don't know if it's my
Let me
internet
close
or
some tabs.
yours.
I'll close some tabs. Maybe that'll help. Okay, I
Um,
closed everything. I can hear you well and see you well.
awesome. Okay, I think it's
Yeah.
better now. Okay, cool. All right. So, with the recent introduction of corporate tax, what are your views on that?
Yeah, obviously it doesn't come with excitement, but look, I definitely see why the government's doing it now, right? I think it's adding legitimacy to the region, right, as a jurisdiction. So I think it's the trend that they need to go in from a global perspective. From a operating perspective, yeah, now we need to be more mindful about tax considerations. Maybe about how we structure the business to optimize for tax or for corporate tax. We need to understand better what the regime means in terms of maybe exemptions, like what activities fall within corporate tax. So there's a lot of learnings that one has to go through to understand it. But ultimately, as a business, right, one needs to adjust, maybe revise um, their operations to optimize for the implementation of tax. We're still, we're revenue generating, but as a startup, one doesn't think about profitability yet. It's all about growth
Yeah,
and scale. So it's not like we have had to worry about it yet. But yeah, it's definitely in the back of our minds, and I still think it's a moderate rate relative to the rest of the
definitely.
world, right?
Rest of the world, yeah.
So yeah, so it doesn't frighten us. I think maybe that this could be step one, right? So one then questions in 5 years' time, would they look to revise the rate, and then for all we know, in 20 years' time, it's the same it's the same uh, environment or ecosystem that the European markets or US markets have, and then that becomes a question mark, right? But I think the GCC or UAE specifically, I don't think would need to go into that direction. I
Yeah.
think they just want to see what their plans are to become more favorable globally for foreign investment and so on. So it makes sense. Yeah.
No, you're right. That totally makes sense. And you're right. Like, I don't feel like in the next couple of years at least, or even like 5 years, things would change as much because the people here are still trying to get themselves familiar with, how to deal with it. Because we recently did a seminar on corporate tax, and the response that we got showed how eager people in finance and accounting are to still learn about it, right? And the
Yeah.
education is still not there completely. There are a lot of questions, a lot of confusion, so it would be a while, to for things to change, at least in this area. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I think
Yeah.
I think like the first step would be just seek out some advice, right? Find a tax advisor that can at least support in the registration process that to start with, and then hopefully it doesn't require too much effort in terms of reporting, right? I think the VAT, for example, the VAT side has become quite seamless to
Yeah.
register and to file. So I'm sure corporate tax will follow a similar approach. I mean, the UAE, we know, is very when it comes to governmental services. I think they're pretty
They're
advanced.
on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't worry about like having to implement because I think it'll be fairly smooth.
No, totally agreed. I feel like the government always, like, they do their job in getting people
Yeah,
acquainted with any new reforms that are there.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So with AI and digital transformation being in the picture, what sort of challenges do you see the finance function facing in the Middle East?
Ugh. I mean, definitely regulatory, right? I think the regulator, for a good reason, is quite conservative in the UAE. I think they need to be to ensure that the legitimacy and credibility of the regulator stays, up
Space,
to
yeah.
par. So that's going to be the biggest struggle. It's like, how do you get the regulator on board to make sure they're okay with you implementing AI or in financial services? Then the data security, data protection part, right, which becomes a big question mark, and that's a concern, right? I think JP Morgan at one point, a lot of JP Morgan staff were using ChatGPT, and there was a huge data breach, right? That got somehow was hacked, and so it created a lot of concerns, issues, and so yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest thing, right? It's how do you get the regulator on board from a data protection perspective, ensuring that it's not affecting the outcome of clients. And then if you look at even for us where we're servicing the retail space,
Yeah.
add another layer of concern the regulator will have. So I think those are the biggest challenges. Um, then there's the adoption itself, right? The adoption from the clients. I think that's becoming increasingly
Yeah,
easier,
easier. Yeah.
right? Yeah, I think now today with ChatGPT, like it no longer becomes a question mark of whether
Yeah.
this is a risk to use as an individual. But still, when it comes to finances, there's always more anxiety around it, and so if I told a client today, hey, instead of me, I'm going to give you an AI to manage your money, I don't think
You're
they're going
like,
to
no,
be that
get out.
cool, right? Like, yeah, they're going to be like completely like anxious around it. So
Yeah.
that's something that's going to be a challenge that financial services will have to overcome, right, over time, and it will
Yeah.
happen, right? Regulators will catch up, becomes more normal. It's like crypto, right? Like today, you wouldn't even question if there's a company that's doing anything crypto related because the regulator now has the
Yeah.
framework to allow for it. But 5 years ago,
It wasn't.
you
Yeah, it
would
was a
you
big
would
deal.
it
Yeah.
was a big thing. Yeah, yeah. Now banks themselves getting involved with these things. So yeah, it's going to be a staggered approach, right? Like fintechs being the early adopters to implement, then banks following on once they see disruption happening, clients following into that. So and regulator just needs to be there to ensure it happens in a healthy way, right? And
Because
protect.
compliance is also like a huge thing in finance, and which is why finance folks can never, at least for now, let artificial intelligence, like, just like write it for them. And I feel like ethics in AI will be a debate for a while now. At least I don't see that stopping anytime soon, because these are the questions we do these chat gpt for finance workshops. We're teaching like very basic things to get done through chat gpt, and always there are people asking this question, like data breach,
Yeah,
privacy, because it's important. It's
yeah,
important
yeah, yeah,
numbers and data that someone would be putting on to just
for
type.
sure. And then there's the hallucinations part that you have to then make mitigate, right? Like it's like imagine that this AI does give advice that for some reason isn't aligned with what should have been
Yeah,
said, and then who's liable, right? It's
exactly.
that's where it becomes very tricky.
And like just
So
like basics of verifying what's coming out of ChatGPT. A lot of people don't do that. They see
Yeah.
something that comes out, they're like, okay, good to go, push it forward.
Yeah, yeah. No, that becomes a big concern, especially when it comes to advisory, right? So, no, one has to watch out for that for sure.
And even like if you
Yeah,
look at the basics when people use AI for copywriting, let's say, if I go on LinkedIn, I can tell what posts have been written by AI. People don't even bother changing any of the words. So it just
yeah,
goes to show how we're neglecting and just taking whatever AI is giving us.
yeah. No, exactly. It has its benefits because it can,
Help out
optimize
a lot.
delivery,
Yeah.
right? Like, you can save a lot of time, but reliability then becomes the question mark. And if someone is not competent enough to verify what's being written to a certain degree, it's carries huge risks. Like now, if one of my wealth advisors goes and just purely uses the GPT and is sending emails and recommendations with it, I would be so worried, right? Because I'm like, wait, like have you made sure this is written properly? So yeah, there's a lot of things that I don't think the market's ready for in terms of full adoption, but it will happen, right?
Has to. Yeah,
It has to.
eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Okay, Sammy, this brings me to the last question.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for individuals who are unsure where to start with wealth management? Any sources that you would want to recommend to people who are just starting to educate themselves?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, CFA is a great examination to take for wealth management because it really covers the principles. I think if anyone wants to go into the industry itself, it's unfortunately these days to join a bank, you will get exposure to clients, of course, and training and so on. But I just feel like today the way banks operate are extremely inefficient, and so someone who's young, professional, but wants to be in wealth management, I would definitely start thinking about fintechs like ourselves, for example, that can get the same exposure that a bank does, but learn to operate in an environment that's current, right? And can learn a lot from that. So yeah, CFA. But also these days, there's so much content online when it comes to um, not just in like wealth management, but like what are the like principles around diversification, ETFs. Like there's so much content out there. Like Vanguard, for example, which is one of the biggest asset managers and wealth managers, they have a learn page, and their learn page is excellent. Like it gives you all the fundamentals around wealth management that if one reads would understand very well. But yeah, in terms of experience, I don't think one can go into a private bank necessarily because private banking requires a lot of experience and so on, and you should have a book of clients already by then. But joining a wealth management in a bank still gives you access to clients and you can learn, right? And that's usually a good step into the industry. And that's what I did, right? I didn't enjoy it. Like I'll be honest, like I enjoyed the client experience, looking after them, but being inside the environment of a bank
Ecosystem, yeah,
it didn't suit me, but it gave me so much insights,
exposure, yeah.
right? Exposure. It made me understand why processes are the way they are, policies, and helped me to do what I do at Vault, right? Had I known there was a Vault that existed as I was entering wealth management, probably I would have
Yeah.
joined, the likes of Vault because, yeah, I think being current in today's environment, you know, and especially in our like age group makes sense, right? Uh, so yeah, that's my recommendations, and try to invest on your own. Like with it doesn't have to be real money; it could be dummy money. But understanding, okay, how does one diversify their investments? What are the types of products out there? You can open a trading account pretty much anywhere, and you can create a demo account or a dummy account, right, to start at least experiencing it yourself, so that you can, I think experience is the best way to learn. I mean, it's the best way I learn, and so I find it more useful than just reading a textbook, right? It's like actually getting.
Okay, so my question would be like, let's say there's someone who just, is starting off thinking of that, they want to invest their own wealth. Where do you think they should start off? Like, I have a pool of money, how do I invest in a good way? Where should they start off with in terms of their
Yeah,
investment?
yeah. So I'd first look at opening a trading account. Interactive brokers, for example, where it's super cheap. You can even find platforms that are commission free, right? Like you don't have to pay for trades, like zero per commission. So open a trading account, right? There's many out there. Once you've opened a trading account, find out, again, diversification is the cornerstone of investing. Everyone understands that what the S&P, well, many would know what the S&P 500 is, right? And so I would say like focus on ETFs, which are like exchange traded funds that are diversified, low cost, and start allocating funds towards these types of products. And then try to understand what does the product actually mean, right? What are the underlying investments, so that you can fully see where your money is being deployed, and follow that approach, right? Anyone who's in wealth management would realize that investing is so much more behavioral than fundamental, right? So a good statistic is that the best performing fund over 50 years would be making around 25%, let's say, a year. The average investor within that fund would maybe making 6 to 7%. And it's only because of the behavior they go through of selling at the wrong times, buying in the
Yeah.
wrong times, and not experiencing volatility in the right way. So yeah, someone who's first time investing, opening a trading account, put your money into some low cost ETFs, understand how passive or tracking indexes works, right, to invest in, and take it from there. And then if you want to get into more complicated products or more complicated solutions, then you can explore different strategies, still focusing on ETFs, because I think those are the best solutions for first time investors. They're very low cost, and they expose you to a lot of asset allocation and diversification. So that's my, and try to avoid day trading, because anyone who tries to trade and speculate the market, I've seen it happen. I've seen it with clients. It's almost impossible to outperform the markets, right? As much as one is knowledgeable, you're better off just diversifying, tracking the market, because at the end of the day, there's professionals that do that.
Yeah.
And day trading is fun. And if you want to put a bit of money just to experience it, sure. But to really manage your wealth over the long term and preserve your wealth, I would say avoid day trading. It's a
Okay,
dangerous game.
I
Yeah.
have something to ask. Have you
Yeah.
guys thought about like starting maybe like an educational thing, like just educating people on the basics of wealth management? Is that something you guys have been considering?
We we have we're well, it's not been announced yet, but we will be creating a Vault Academy, hopefully soon. And in that Vault Academy, it's like a free program that one can subscribe to, and it's a full-on induction of the principles, the fundamentals of wealth management, but then also tapping into the practical side of it, of
Yeah.
like how does one manage a client's wealth? Like what are the questions you should be asking? What are the facts you should be finding? How do you manage their emotions? Like when I was in the bank and COVID happened, my clients' portfolios were down maybe 30, 40%, right? And every client was like, I need to sell, sell, sell. And the good advisor would tell them, no, just
No,
keep it,
wait it
remember the
out.
long-term plan, wait it out. And, you wouldn't lose out. The bad advisors, which have happened, would say, yeah, yeah, we'll sell and we'll try to buy back in at the right time. What happened was these clients sold, waited for a right time, but then the market recovered and never invested again, because they were just in their heads like, you know what, I've just lost a lot of money. I'm not going to go and buy back into the market at this high price. And that's it. They probably will never invest. So yeah, we have a Vault Academy hopefully coming soon. It will not only help people understand wealth management, but should we ever want to bring in new wealth advisors that don't have years of experience, but they want to
The
get
one,
into the
yeah.
industry, our academy can somewhat be a incubator of new young individuals who want to become wealth advisors, right? So that's the long term plan as we
That'd be pretty
grow.
cool. I
It'd be
will
cool, yeah, yeah,
definitely sign up myself to just learn more about
yeah.
the more about how I could do it on my own. But I'm definitely gonna open a trading account after your advice.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, open it up. Something that's super cheap. Honestly, putting your money in the S&P 500 just to start, which is like the top 500 companies in the US,
Yeah.
mainly global, right? But that's always a good way to start in terms of preserving wealth, because fundamentally it makes sense. And then from there, you enter into things that are a bit more. I wouldn't even use the word complex, but just require a bit more understanding, right? for
No,
sure.
definitely. Good advice. I'm gonna
Yeah,
take that.
yeah,
Awesome.
great.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Sammy. It was great talking to you.
The
Thank
pleasure.
you. Take care. Have a
All
great
right,
day.
take care.
Bye
You
bye.
too. Bye.